Welcome to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, Level 2. This is Part 2 for the teaching of Loving All Aspects of Self. And I entitled this lesson, Loving All Aspects of Self, because truly we are learning how to love all of these divergent little aspects of self that have been externalized as different types of cultures or different types of star cultures. Just redrawing what I had in the previous lesson, kind of giving you this visual code for, let's say, these 3 divergent types of personality characteristics that live in 3 different star systems, and all of whom had an influence on the genetic code of what we would currently say is humanity. So here I'm showing 3 different, we could call them waves, we could call them personality characteristics, we could call them genetic characteristics, all intertwining together to become the type of genetic soup that people are right now, that humans rather are right now. And in previous lessons, I have described this process of refinement, refining your experience, refining your energy up to the top, as really through your choice, through the level of free will, which is at the level of yellow, your conscious intellect, that you are consciously making choices throughout the day. Remember, I used these little angelic wings to represent particular personality characteristics that are in using unconditional love, service to others, and the higher vibrations. And then I used, little devil horns or demon horns to show the other aspects of self. And of course, now that we have resolved duality using the flying rainbow lasagna, we're resolving duality using the galactic perspective. When you look at this, when I'm calling this the galactic perspective, and you see all of this extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional life, that is all an aspect of self. That is all an aspect of oneness. That is all this one central consciousness, this core consciousness. That is who really exists. And all of these other beings, and this whole panoply, and the incredible drama and push and pull and tension that is happening between all these different personality characteristics, is all about this central core persona coming to know itself better and evolving towards a higher plane. So of course, we are not in the level of duality. It's not just simply either one or the other. We now recognize within your genetic code that you have this many, and we could add a rainbow of different beings in there. But I bring up these 2 symbols over here just to show, during your day, using your conscious mind, you get to make a choice about which of these aspects of your genes you want to resonate with. Do you want to resonate with higher aspects, anything that is unconditional love and above? Or do you want to resonate with lower aspects that have more to do with mere survival, merely surviving at any cost, and that do not allow for softer or more accommodating emotions than simply kill or be killed? And when I told you in Lesson 18 about I often call them orange entities, but they are not orange entities. They are entities that often attack people at the level of the orange chakra and orange emotions. And so all of this has to do with food. And really now, when I talk about loving, if you are this person over here and you have a negative or lower vibrational tendency within you, and I say, I'm going to love it, and that is the universal solvent to solve it and resolve it, what does that mean? Well, I know I spoke about in previous lessons how those negative lower thought entities can only feed off of energy that is at the orange level, that they don't have a mouth made of love, or they don't have the non-physical capacity, the energetic capacity to eat love. And so what they do is they try to poke and prod people in order to get humans to release negative energy, such as anger, sadness, hate, grief, lower level emotions which they can feed upon. So let's draw this like amorphous, blobby, gray creature over here and say, this is this being over here. This is a distortion. This being only exists as a perturbation in the field. All right? Like if we were to say, this is the realm of Earth, and then this is the realm of the higher dimensional world, and then here's this blobby territory in between that only exists in the same way that the meniscus exists on the surface of water. It is a distortion. It's a layer of surface tension in between energy that is moving at two different rates. In this case, this one down here is Earth, and this one up here, or third dimension, and this one up here is higher dimensional reality, okay? So this amorphous, gray, blobby creature does not live at the level of the higher realms, and it does not have the capacity to eat unconditional love. And unconditional love is a tone that we make when we are not in judgment, when we are in a state of acceptance, when literally one's heart is open, when your heart, I'm just changing colors here, when your heart is open, energy may proceed through, and energy may proceed through. Literally, you're not judging, you're not stopping that energy from flowing. It is a pure frictionless state. Well, this little gray guy over here, he can't eat the love that you're producing. But if you make anger or sadness, he can eat that. So what he will do is whisper into your mind, hey, remember that time that someone hurt your feelings, and try to get you to emanate some orange, lower emanation food for it. Well, when you love yourself, you love that entity, you love this being over here. First of all, what you do is you say, I love this aspect of self, this thought that says, hey, remember that bad thing that happened to you? Love yourself. You love the bad thing that happened to you. Send loving energy to it. Essentially what you do is you erase that thought, or you just allow it to exist. If you're in meditation, don't respond to it. And you can actively send love to this gray, blobby entity. You don't have to say the words, but you can know that you are saying, I see you. I accept you for who and what you are. You are a perturbation of the field. You are a lie or a distortion, and you're just trying to feed yourself. Your cause is noble, but you cannot feed off of me. That is love. That is unconditional love. And you begin to understand that this blobby creature over here, this blobby creature, is an aspect of your own self. It is like a smudge on the lens, or a smudge in the mirror. If you are looking at, this great cosmic mirror over here, and then you see this blobby, gray creature in there, you must understand that's not who you really are. This is who you really are. You're this being of pure love. You're beautiful. And if you look in the cosmic mirror and you see a blobby gray creature who's trying to poke and prod you and bring up negative thoughts and negative emotions, you love them. And the way that you love them, the love is like the Windex that cleans off the mirror. You love them. You say, I accept you. I see who and what you are. I see what you are doing. And you do not respond with anger and hate. You understand? That anger and hate, if you were to do this, you're not me, go away, all the different things that you want to say, like it's very normal to want to fight against this blobby creature that's impinging upon you. It's just like if someone had a gun and wanted to shoot you, you want to shoot them back. That's the lower level self. You are not the lower level self. You are that core persona, that central self that will be at the center of your time cone. And that is so secure in who and what you are that you do not feel a need to fight against negative personality characteristics. Allow them to be, but do not allow them to feed off of you. And this is the way that we really heal these aspects of self. There are some very beautiful stories about Buddha while he was in the process of enlightenment or ascension, and some others, that they meditated so assiduously that they caused some of the negative lower vibrational entities to convert. Essentially, they starved them out. what they did was, if this blobby gray entity relies upon your orange emanations to feed off of, like first it sends out a negative thought to you, and that makes you get either angry or sad or whatever, and you release this and it's like, ooh, yummy, I'm going to eat that. But what if it sends out that negative thought to you and you refuse to release orange? Instead, you release green. What's it going to do? Oh, well, it can't eat green. So what? It's going to get even more negative. It's going to send out more negativity at you. And then you recognize it for what it truly is. You're not going to create orange. You're not going to get angry and fight against it further. You simply allow it to be and love it. And then it eventually, if you keep on doing that, this negative thought entity has two choices. Either it can change, it can raise its vibration, and it can develop the capacity to eat love, the type of food that you are creating and feeding it with, or it can become annihilated. It can cease to exist. You can starve it out. And when we look at, like, if we looked at a blobby negative entity here, we could say that it contains aspects of consciousness. It might contain tiny little bits of consciousness that are loving consciousness, and then it might also contain a great deal of lower vibrational distortion, and I'm using orange just as a lower vibrational representative color, but orange is still a good color, so don't misinterpret orange. But just like food, if you look at junk food or whatever, it might have, 1% of a tiny little bit of nutrition in there, but then mostly be junky. Well, if you look at these distorted creatures, we're no longer calling them demons. We're calling them distorted aspects of self. We're calling these creatures who are so bent on their own survival, their own continued survival here, that I told you in Lesson 18 all about the economy of hell, how there's an entire hierarchy, how it is incredibly conscious, the way that they have set everything up, and that their intention is to maintain their economy. Well, what happens when you maintain your stance of unconditional love? You are, in a sense, starving this creature out. And this creature, this lower dimensional blobby creature, it is a farmer. And it looks at you as if you are its crop. And it is trying to get fed. And when you are refusing to create orange food, as I said before, I'm reiterating, it has to make a choice. Over here, I drew it as a mixture of different types of elements. And I'm trying to get across to you that these little flecks of green, that's a little bit of light. There's a little tiny bit of light inside of that creature, but mostly distortion, etc. Well, what that means is it needs to go through the refinery. When you go through the refinery, you put it through the vortex, and what comes out the top? What comes out the top is any little amount of light. The green stuff comes out the top, and the rest is, recycled. It is, you're separating out the orange from the green. You're separating out consciousness, awareness, love. That's what these little tiny sparks of green are. That's like a little tiny spark of love, or a little tiny spark of God, or a little tiny spark of awareness. That gets sent back to the source. When I do this in my meditation, if I have a gray blobby creature that is attacking me, essentially shooting me with mental telepathic thoughts that are trying to get me to emanate, lower vibrational orange food, when that is happening, I send that creature back to the sun. And I have already spoken to you about how the sun, this beautiful, just looking for a good color here, I send them back to the sun. You could also envision sending them back to the galactic core. It's like sending someone back for recycling. Essentially, these grayish creatures, they attack you, they attack humans, not only to feed off of you or to farm you, but they are presenting themselves for healing. They are your own aspects of self presenting themselves in the cosmic interdimensional mirror that I'm now drawing over here. And when you look in that mirror, if you see these blobby creatures, if they interact with you, you need to love them. You need to starve them of lower vibrational food and feed them only love, and send them back to the source for recycling. Because any little aspects of self that are valuable, any little sparks of light, those will go onward towards greater evolution, towards greater levels of consciousness. And all the rest of this orange stuff will go towards the lower level. It gets recycled down to the lower level. Okay, this is not confusing, because I've gone over it many times in previous lessons, and I'm going to reiterate. It's the difference between energy and entropy, and it is why the Flying Rainbow Lasagna resolves duality. So let's say both of these points represent infinity. Both of these directions represent infinity, except this direction over here represents an infinite amount of energy, total energy, all of the energy that exists in the world. And this energy, infinity down here represents the complete opposite, a total lack of energy, total entropy. This is the description of the universe that fits with science. We talk about the scientific model, the Bose-Einstein condensate. I did that in a previous lesson. I'm going to do it super fast for you again. Okay, so Bose-Einstein condensate. This is refreshing your mind. There are different states of matter. There is solid matter, okay? Liquid matter, gaseous matter, and then we start to get into energy. We start to get into plasma. I'm going to use a different color. Plasma, like what fire is, and then eventually into a beam. We'll use violet. Here's a beam of pure light, like a beam of starlight. So there's also a level of matter that is even more dense than solid matter, and that's all the way down here. That is what a Bose-Einstein condensate is. When you take matter, which is essentially slowed down light or solidified light, and you slow it down, ordinarily, yes, okay, well, we'll get into that. Ordinarily, if this is an atom, and you have the nucleus of the atom, the little electron is bouncing all around, here, 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 very, very, very fast. When you make it cold, and slow it down to, let's say, 0 degrees Kelvin, that's like almost absolute, or absolute zero, or if you slow it down to almost absolute zero, these little guys aren't zipping around anymore. What happens is they start to kind of smear. They're moving slowly and sluggishly, and all of these little subatomic particles start to smear together. And if you look at it with other atoms around it, all of these atoms that have slowed down, all of their little particles start to kind of smear together. And what you get is something that is approaching infinity, but from the level of total entropy. Entropy is lack of energy. If you sent something such as a rock or a rocket ship into space and you just sent it off to endlessly go, it wouldn't endlessly go. If it ran into things or developed friction, eventually it would slow down, slow down, slow down, and then just be floating in the cold blackness of interstellar space with no energy and no anything, and it wouldn't move unless something else came along and gave it a push. That is the level of entropy that we're talking about down here. On the one hand, we have total energy. We have total, up here, this would be the presence of every single piece of energy that exists. We would have consciousness, we would have timelines. It's the black hole, it's the singularity, it's the presence of all energy. But at the other end of the spectrum, we have total lack of energy. That is the Bose-Einstein condensate. And you can look at this little chart that I drew of the different stages of matter as being a ladder. And that ladder is like a ladder of consciousness that can be going in either direction. It can go in this direction, it can go in this direction. Energy can be circulating towards entropy, and that is as valid a destination as energy that is circulating towards the singularity and towards total energy. So when you take one of these gray blobby entities and you refine it, and here, let's put little dots of green over in the little blobby entropy, and then we'll put a whole bunch of orange in there. Well, what happens is the little dots of green go towards higher energy. Those go towards consciousness. They go onward on their journey. And the distortion, the orange, that goes towards the state of total entropy. Energy is taken away from that which is false. It is a lie. It is a distortion. We do not feed it. And it becomes like these particles over here that are so slow, that have zero energy in them at all, that they all start to kind of smear together, and you achieve unity at the opposite end of the spectrum. And that is as much a part of unity and God consciousness and the journey of consciousness as is the journey towards greater evolution and greater levels of organization. So this is the balance that we are experiencing here. And this is how I can love someone if I see that they are on a very divergent path than mine. If they are, going towards violence, they might be on this ladder of consciousness over here. They might be going towards the Bose-Einstein condensate. They might be going towards a level of total entropy that will achieve unity consciousness. And I also understand that they might have tiny little particles of consciousness that is light or awareness or God or intelligence or that comes from the source, and that those little tiny aspects of self, that's like flecks of gold, and we're like mining for gold. We don't discard those. Those are refined. They are refined out and brought to higher levels. When a lower vibration creature presents itself to you, one of these blobby gray creatures that lives in the interstices, one of these elements that is just a distortion of the central ray of consciousness that we all truly are, when they present themselves to you through these, attacks on your mind, you have the opportunity to send them through the recycling program of the universe and have them go in the direction that basically brings them closer to infinity on their journey. That some aspects of self will be going towards entropy, and some aspects of self will be going towards energy. And that when you achieve the non-dualistic perspective, like by using the flying rainbow lasagna and employing some of these other higher consciousness tools, you understand that they are both points on the same shape. They are both aspects of consciousness in the same reality. So now, having achieved the planetary perspective, and then having achieved the galactic perspective, you can see how your daily moment-to-moment experience of, what is going on in your mind with these entities speaking to you and beaming energy into you, and what you are doing in terms of how you react to that, that has an impact on your personal life as an individual. When everybody does it, it has an impact on the planetary culture. And what is happening on this planet through this genetic influence that humanity has had is really what tied to what is happening on each of these individual star cultures. So now you understand your day-to-day, moment-to-moment consciousness and what you think is tied to what is going on in the galaxy and all of these galactic consciousnesses. You matter. Your mind matters. Your choices matter. And your choices all add up to what is going on the planet right now, which has everything to do with galactic consciousness and formally uniting with our galactic family members. because it is now very evident from this lesson and many of the others that I have given to you that we have been influenced, often in a negative way, by star beings for a very long time. And now it is through being consciously aware of those influences, or humanity and earthly planetary life is gaining the capacity to make a conscious choice about what you think, who you associate with, which direction do you want to be going. This teaching about unity and unconditional love and the journey of consciousness is absolutely essential and absolute prerequisite for use of higher dimensional technology or concepts such as the Merkaba. That really understanding this context of the universe and self and being able to love all divergent aspects of self is essential to being able to create and control and utilize and employ your own Merkaba. This unconditional love is like, I'm trying to think of an exercise. It is like doing a basic exercise that allows you to do all of the sports that you really want to do, and it matters. Like, let's say unconditional love is like doing push-ups, and that doing that makes you strong, so that then you can play baseball or basketball or football or whatever. Well, the Merkaba is the interdimensional version of, a particular sport and a particular expertise, and you have to do your push-ups in order to be not worthy, but to be adept enough and developed enough to begin to utilize that faculty. And when I teach about the Merkaba, it is not done lightly because it is a position of responsibility, and that's why it is always surrounded by many teachings about unconditional love and how we react to entities such as, these gray, blobby, distorted entities that are not based in unconditional love, and how do we react towards that? And the answer is to recycle them. Recycle those entities. They go back to the great central sun. They are refined. Any aspects of higher consciousness get to go higher in their process of refinement, and lower aspects of consciousness are not fed, and the energy goes towards entropy, and they become incredibly, cold and still, and they're not active anymore. And just to tie this all together with the time cones that I always draw, this idea of the time cones that are shaped like this, or time vortexes that are shaped like this, with the infinity timeline that actually goes onward, and I've spoken about how that is one's ascended master personality, and that these other timelines around here are always like lesser emanations or distortions of that central core self. Well, now you may begin to understand this whole shape here as being the refinery of consciousness going towards energy, and the rest of it going towards entropy. This is a very big topic, and it's also a new way of looking at, a new perspective for looking at the universe. So I'm truly interested to hear the feedback of students and your perspective and your insights into this information. Thank you so much for joining me on this lesson. Thank you.